All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you have political science, either hour 1, hour 3, or hour 6. Want to get you started, headed in the right direction concerning federalism. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about federalism already, but today we're going to delve into federalism in a much deeper manner, using the Constitution once yet again. Just a real quick reminder from Thursday. One of the things that you need to accomplish for today, and you need to turn this in to Mr. Zimmer, is your completed response on eminent domain. Remember that you saw a short 15-minute clip on eminent domain, and we talked a little bit about on Thursday your thoughts on what eminent domain is. Remember that we're dealing with eminent domain and its connection to the Fifth Amendment. Please don't forget, I'd like to hear your response on paper, typed, double-spaced, ready to go by the end of the day today. Please make sure you get that to Mr. Zimmer. What we're working with today is division. All right, we have tons of division today in American society and in American politics, as many of you have pointed out throughout the course. Today, the division that we're going to look at specifically will be division between state and federal power. Many of us have a good connection, and I think you do as a student have very good connection with state power. Many of the state and local laws have much more impact on you in many respects than possibly the federal, although we certainly have looked at how the federal Constitution has an impact on all of us. Today I want you to work through, at least in a very cursory way, in other words, a very starter, right out of the gate here, to look at the federal and state powers, and also powers that both have. So while the federal government has power, the state government has power here in the state of Wisconsin, there are also things called concurrent powers that both the federal government and the state government have together. And we want to definitely look at some specific examples of that. So what I want to point to first, and again, this is going to get you back into the Constitution. Remember that you've already read Chapter 4, you've written your summary, you've got a pretty good handle, I hope, on what the major content idea is that we're dealing with here in Chapter 4, which is federalism. We're going to start very basically today. And again, what I'd like you to do to start with, and Mr. Zimmer will hand you a sheet here that's going to, and you can work individually to begin with, because I think it starts out fairly simplistically. I'd like you to start with the front page, page 1 here. It's going to ask you to come up with 5 examples of federal powers in our Constitution. Any 5. Many of you are going to find this to be very easy, but you need 5 federal powers to begin with. On the state side, I'd like you to list individually 5 different powers that you see as things that the state of Wisconsin or states in general have. So 5 state powers, 5 federal powers. When you get down to the bottom, I'd like you to think about 3 things that are what they call concurrent powers. And those are powers that both the state of Wisconsin has as well as the federal government. So 5 federal powers, 5 state powers, and 3 concurrent powers. You can bullet those items or number them, but I'd like you to put those on the front page. That's the first step. Second step is to get a little bit deeper into the Constitution, looking at it specifically from the federal and the state side. This page here, which is the second page, the back side of what we just looked at, there are 4 rings on this sheet. Federal, state, concurrent, or rings, in this case, powers that both would have, and then powers off to the side here that neither the state or the federal government have. In this case, I've got individual examples lettered A through Y. What I'm asking you to do is look at the U.S. Constitution in particular and determine where each one of these individual powers is going to rest. For example, will raise an army, does raise an army sit just with the federal government? Does it fit with the state government? Or is it a concurrent power? Does it fit with both? So you're going to put that capital letter that indicates that power in the individual ring. Put it right inside of the ring. Use a capital letter if you would, so I can determine clearly what you're trying to show me. But you've got to indicate for every one of these from A through Y where you think they fit. State, federal, concurrent, or they may not fit any of those, and that's where you're going to put that out there in the far ring. Again, we're trying to get a little bit deeper, a little bit more specific using federalism. State, federal, concurrent, and again, an example of things that are none of the above. A through Y, specific examples, put the capital letter in the area where you think that fits. We're going to talk more about that on Monday. Backside, or the second page, I should say. And this gets you to even go a little bit deeper into, again, the question of federalism. But we're going to use some examples, and this time drive it towards the Constitution. This final sheet here, which is the second page, is going to ask you to use some examples. In this case, I've got in here regulate state trade as an example, or pass laws. Let's use pass laws as an example. If, for example, under number 9, pass laws, we know that both the federal government and the state government pass laws. In this case, we're going to say it's C. It's a concurrent power, both the federal and the state. So you'd put C right there next to pass laws. And then you're going to determine, from a federal government perspective, using your textbook, using the Constitution, where specifically in the Constitution that's found. Where is that power to pass laws, for example? Where is that found in the Constitution? So you might say that's in Article 1, that's with our legislative branch, but where specifically in Article 1 does that provide, or where is that provided, I should say, within the Constitution? So again, just a quick review, you're either using it as a federal, a state, or a concurrent power. Similar to what you've done before, but a little bit differently, because now you're going to drive it to the next stage. You're going to use the Constitution to prove that if it's a federal power, where in the Constitution is that provided for? So it'll be one of those 3, 4, 5, or 6, and possibly 7 articles within the Constitution to provide specific evidence to say, yes, this is where the federal government says, for example, the federal government can pass laws. Okay, so again, state, federal, or concurrent powers. That's where you're going to identify this off on the left-hand side using one of these 18 identifiers, everything from grant marriage licenses down to build and maintain roads. And then specifically off to the side, you're going to put the article and the specific clause of the Constitution which provides for it on the federal side. Again, dealing with the federal U.S. Constitution. If you have questions, certainly ask Mr. Zimmer, but you're going to really rely heavily on your text and on your Constitution. I'd like you to have all 3 of these completed, ready to go on Monday morning. Remember, on Monday morning, you're going to get your quizzes back on the amendment quiz that we took earlier this week, and you're also going to finally get your 28th Amendment assessment back on your letter. We will finish those letters as well on Monday. We've got a very busy Monday. Please come prepared, ready to go. And if you have questions, you can certainly bring those up at the beginning of class. Do not hesitate also to ask Mr. Zimmer as well. He's well versed in this content and can help you identify some of the areas within the Constitution. Thank you. Have yourself a good weekend. Please make sure that you have this completed, ready to go on Monday. Thank you.